So we're going to get into our first kind of task, if you will. All right? No, we're not. We're going to go through this first. Order of the day. There we go. Reflect and review. That will be the first task in a second. So a deep dive into the past 12 months. We're going to look at creating the plan, as I mentioned. So your guide to goals for Q1 and beyond. AA frameworks. All right? So analyze and action, that stands for. Your success frameworks that you can always come back to, by the way. Something I really want to highlight, and I'll come on to it later. We use these frameworks, we go through reflective practices, all that kind of stuff here, but then we don't actually utilize them again until maybe we're back in this same room. And we should really start changing that, using them more frequently. So you can take those away. And then your 2025 survival pack, all right? Simplify, he says, plan, and then have some actions, all right? This is gonna be available to you in the lab. That's the goal, that's the plan, all right? So all that information that I dump on you today, you will be able to, at any point in the course of the year, come back to it, review it, and go over it, okay? Oh, I've walked too far away from the clicker. Okay, so, phones. Don't normally ask for phones out, but I'd like you to get your phone out. Now this is a drill or something we actually went through as a team in one of our team meetings not too long ago. And I want you to go on your phone and I want you to go back into your pictures. And I want you to go back to the 25th of Jan, 2024, last year. And I want you to have a look at a picture on that day or close to it. And I want you to start casting your mind back a little bit to where you were, what you were doing on that date. And I want you to start thinking about these things on the screen. I'm going to read them out to you. So where was I at that time? And I want you to think about that physically and mentally. How did the year ahead look to me? What was the plan? Did you, at this point, last year, 12 months ago, did you have a plan moving forward for the year ahead? Was I happy? Was I content? Or did I want change at that point? And then lastly, what was my mindset like? Okay? Now we've gone in deep quickly here, okay? But we're setting the tone a little bit because that's how I want this first bit to be. So have a look at that picture and start thinking about those things. And then I want you to draw this table in your diaries, okay? So I want you to draw that table in your diaries. Nothing crazy, real simple, 3 columns. At the top of one, the plan. In the middle, you're gonna write review. And on the right-hand side, you're gonna write reflect. So just do that for me now. So write that table down for me. Now, the idea behind this is to start thinking back to last year, 2024, all right? Hopefully there was a plan at some point at the start of the year, whether it be physically, so around health and fitness, it could be gym related, it could be lifestyle related, relationships, it could be business, it could be anything. What was a plan around January 2024 last year, okay? And I'm going to give you a little bit of a rough guideline with one of mine, okay? So from a physical standpoint, you've heard us talk about it quite a lot, but that's why I'm going to use it. So the plan at the start of the year was a sub-60 high rocks doubles in October or November, and to compete in my first high rocks singles in November, December. That was the plan moving forward for 2024. The review were those times, so I made that happen. So didn't quite get the sub 60, we know that, all right? 102.51, singles 112.31. Yeah, so that was my review. That's how it went. And then reflection. Overall happy, but know there's more there. Need to manage training intensity and volume, reduce risk of injury and fatigue, look at my training days, my training times and fuel and recovery, and need to be more precise. So that was my personal quick reflection. I now want you to do the same thing, if you haven't started that already, all right? For 1 or 2 things for the time being, just to kind of save time, all right? So think back to the start of last year, the plan. What was it? What did you set out to achieve? Then look at the review. Did it happen? And then the reflection was, if it did, cool. Maybe why did it happen? Think of the positives. If it didn't happen, then debrief that to yourself and think, okay, well, why? And remember, with all this reflective stuff, it's very, very easy to stay surface level. We've mentioned that in every summit. But try and go a little bit deeper than that, all right? Try and actually think about why that outcome happened. Now, time-wise, I'm going to give you about 4 minutes to finish that. Now, we're going to move on. So we've got that first part down now. We're going to draw this table, table number 2, all right? So you now need 4 columns. So get it drawn down, you've got 4 columns there. First one, habits. So habits, column 1. Beliefs, column 2. Behaviors in column 3. And routine in column 4. Once again, that is habits, beliefs, behaviors, and routine. And once again, we're thinking back to 2024, okay? And I'm going to give you that kind of recap of my one, give you a bit of a nudge in the right direction, I hope. So, habits, these were the 2. In bed too late, okay? So I wasn't prioritizing sleep, I was in bed too late, but I did have a weekly simmer meal prep company delivering food to my door every Monday, which was a good thing, all right? My beliefs. That this would be an easier year and the majority of my hard work was done. That was off the back of High Rocks. So I'd put a load of work in to achieving a goal, all right? The year before, we didn't get the sub hours, as you guys probably know, but I thought, the most of the work's done. I'm good. A few little tweaks here and there, and for the most part, I should be fine for the next one. Yeah, hard work's done. Behaviors. I continued to train like it was my peak week. And what I mean by that was basically my intensity was just too high. Yeah, I thought I'd gone back to my old days of being an athlete, all right, and I was far from it, okay? I thought that I had built a foundation where I could relax and still see or get the results in which I wanted. And my routine was nothing other than getting my sessions in 6 times a week. There was no real thought process behind it. It was slapdash pretty much, but I was getting my sessions in, okay? Your turn. So now, think about each of those elements. And I say it every time we do a summit. A lot of you will be here because you're hoping that I'm gonna tell you the magic ingredient around nutrition, the magic ingredient that you're missing currently from your training or your lifestyle, whatever. This stuff right here is the stuff that will change an outcome for you, not what you're hoping for, all right? So please think about this as best you possibly can, because that's the stuff that will give you a change. We're gonna move on. 25th of Jan, 2025, i.e. today. So now start thinking about where you are right now. There may have been a few changes from where we were a second ago, thinking back into Jan 2024, okay? So start bringing yourself now into present day where you are right now. And I want you to start thinking about this. So the year ahead, what went well in 2024 that you need to replicate? What didn't go to plan? Why? And what needs to change? Okay, so let me read that again. Think back to what actually went well for you in 2024. Something that ideally you need to replicate. If it went well, then let's do that again, all right? What didn't go to plan, think about why it didn't go to plan and what might need to change with that, okay? So start thinking about that. I then want you to do that same table once again. Stay with me, okay? I appreciate it's a lot of writing or typing. Just stay with me. okay? So you're going to draw that table once again, but now you are thinking about where you are right now, okay? At some point, not now, you're going to really start to draw a parallel between those two. But think about where you are right now. Answer the same questions. Think habits, beliefs, behaviors, routine. And whilst you're writing, I'm just going to run you through mine just in case you get stuck, okay? So habit-wise, I have a consistently earlier bedtime. So I actually have a bedtime routine now because I know that I need to start prioritizing sleep a lot better, okay? I actually prep my own meals as opposed to having Simmer deliver them so that I can actually control more of the macronutrients. And I've habit stacked my supplements first thing in the morning. Now, habit stacking is basically creating a positive habit alongside something that you do every single day. So when I wake up in the morning, head downstairs, make coffee or whatever it is, there's going to be my supplements right there. I know that I can take them straight away. All right, so that's something that I've implemented. Beliefs, I've told myself that I'm no longer an athlete. I'm not okay with it, but I'm doing my best. All right, I need to be more patient. I need to think about building slower to build higher. Behaviors, I've taken more of that 360 approach that I mentioned earlier. It's less about just the training element. It is about the rest, the recovery and nutrition. Learn from past mistakes and built more solid foundations in my training. Again, prioritize sleep and rest. And routine, if I'm honest with you, it's still a work in progress, but it is definitely now more balanced. I'm at a place now where I'm better at adapting my routine. Okay, wasn't beforehand, it was very regimented. Everything else would go to make sure that I got that session in. I now listen to my body better. I think about that session timing, the food around it. If things need to be tweaked and changed, I will do that to prioritize the outcome versus being just a ball in the china shop. I'm just going to get it done regardless. Okay, so they're mine. Again, have a think about yours, where you are right now. So now I want you to start thinking again, just draw that parallel between the two. So think back 2024, January to now. If there have been changes, what has driven those changes, both positive or negative? So if there has been a positive change in the last 12 months, what's driven it? If actually there has been a negative change within that time, which is also definitely possible, what's driven that? Or perhaps what's contributed to a lack of any change at all? Now that should be relatively short and sharp. Think about that for a second. We're going to start to look at this. So we're now going to start to build a bit of a plan. So I want you to start thinking about your year. Obviously we have the quarters, we mentioned that earlier. They could be your summits, they could just be benchmarks in the course of the year for you, whatever it needs to be. But I want you to start thinking about that. We're going to highlight Q1 as I mentioned earlier, all right? Now you might have an idea about where you want to be Jan 2026, and if you do, amazing, hold that thought. But for the time being, we're just going to start working our way that way, okay? Jan 26. Where could you be in 12 months? Now, this is going to be really important what I'm about to say. Because potentially where you would be in 12 months with your current mindset, current habits, beliefs, all that kind of stuff would be very, very different to where you could be Jan 2026 if you remove limitations, okay? So I want you to think about that. If you removed your own limitations, the limitations that you definitely place upon yourself, all right, so think of the external ones, the ones that you place on yourself. If you remove those, where could you be? If you didn't have fear of failure holding you back, where could you be? If you had the right mindset, where could you be? And if you turned up for yourself daily, where would you be? And I went through this presentation with my wife last night, and she was like, what do you mean by turning up for yourself daily? I don't really understand what you mean. I was like, well, if you made a promise to a friend that you were going to be somewhere, fingers crossed you'd turn up. If they really needed you, you would turn up for them. And often we make that kind of commitment to someone else, but very, very regularly we don't do it for ourselves. So turn up for yourself daily could be a number of things. Could be a daily mindset practice. It could be making sure that you get out for that walk every day. It could be making sure you prep your meals on a Sunday or every day, whatever it could be. Turn up for yourself daily. So think about if you really removed those barriers, where could you be Jan 2026? Think about that quickly. So when you start to think about what that could actually look like, when we start setting goals and we start thinking about moving forward, kind of towards whatever it is that you may have written down just there, think about this. So a goal with a personal meaning creates purpose. And quite often, again, when we come down to setting a goal, we set the intention of it like, oh yeah, I'd love to do that. That would be nice if I did that. That's not enough of a goal. We've mentioned many a times before about kind of having a why behind a goal. Yeah. So if you have a personal meaning behind whatever that outcome potentially is for you in Jan 2026, or even just Q1, all right, it will create purpose. And someone with a goal that actually has purpose and a plan is unstoppable. All right. Now that might sound really cheesy. All right. But think about it. If you actually have a purpose behind what it is that you're looking to achieve, I guarantee you will do that. All right. It has to be something that means something to you. It has to be something that aligns with you and your values. But there needs to be a purpose. If you have a purpose, and then importantly, you have a plan that sits behind it, then you will be successful in whatever it is. Whether you get to the actual point of that goal or close to it, you're going to be in a much better place than you were if you didn't. Okay? So I want you to start thinking about what that could really look like, something meaningful that aligns with you and your values, and what is that thing that's always felt slightly out of reach. And now we're going to try and plan for that a little bit. And the reason we're going to do this, so as I mentioned, kind of goals here, they're good for setting direction. Yep. I might want in, under 12 months time now, a sub 60 doubles high rocks and a sub 60 singles high rocks. That's great saying that, but I need a plan. And it's the plan and the systems that you put in place that actually makes it doable. Otherwise, it's just a vision in the distance. Okay? If I can actually think of them as steps, if you will, all right? Put things in place bit by bit, one step at a time that's going to actually take you to it versus just something that you see in the distance. That's going to be the bit that really helps. For the last time, I promise. Draw that table. Should be etched in memory by now, all right? Habits, beliefs, behaviors, routine. I mean, when you write this one, you're going to start to think a little bit more now about the habits that you need to put in place to get you to where you want to be. You're going to start to think about the belief, how that potentially needs to start changing, what behaviors need to be in place. What does that routine start to look like? So I don't need to write this bit down. I'm just going to kind of talk you through it. So far we've kind of covered these three. We looked back 2024, looked now, we looked ahead 2026, and we started to kind of hopefully bring it all together a little bit to give you a plan off the back of it. So between that 4 and 5, what did I learn? What's staying, what's going? What does success look like this year? Hopefully you've got a rough idea about that, and hopefully you've started to think about why, all right? And then between this year and working towards 2026, you've started to think about what you need to prioritize to make that happen. What's the long-term positive effect? What does the long-term positive effect have on me and those around me? And if you haven't started thinking about that yet, start doing so, because a lot of the time, and quite rightly so to a certain degree, we plan ahead and we set goals and plans in place because it's something that is very individual to us, as I've mentioned earlier. It needs to align with me and my values, quite right. But I think we also dramatically underplay what it can do to those around us, whether it be immediate family, whether it be friends, whatever. So think of the positive impact it could have on those around you, all right? And at the bottom there, it's why still, yeah? And what I mean by that is, you might, if it's deep rooted enough and we've thought about it long and hard, and it is that kind of real kind of tie-in, buy-in reason, then there should still be that kind of why that continues through. It might tweak and change slightly, but there's going to be a why there still, right? We haven't lost sight of that. Otherwise, if it's too superficial, we haven't thought about it deep enough, then that kind of motivation, if you will just tail away, yeah? Eric audit. Now, we have done this before as well. Now, this is going to be, again, another framework that I would like you to use, and it will feature again later on, but don't worry, you haven't got to draw it again. You have this time. So the Eric audit is this. So eliminate, reduce, introduce, and create. Okay? I'm not quite sure who Eric is, but it's quite helpful, all right? So eliminate, reduce, introduce, create, draw that table. Don't panic. So when you think back to this, when you think back to what you just did here, all right, you wrote down what your habits need to be, what your beliefs, behaviors, and routine needs to look like. We've just planned that element, okay? So think about that bit as you come into here. So for that new habit to come in, or that new belief, that new routine, for example, what do I need to eliminate? What do I need to reduce? What do I need to introduce? What do I need to create for that to happen? Okay? So use the last table that you just filled out. Now start thinking about this one. So for that new habit, that new bedtime routine that I had, what do I need to eliminate? Time on my phone. And I'm pretty sure that everyone can write that down. All right?
You know us so well.
I know. All right? It might be that I need to reduce the amount of time that I spend on my laptop after work doing more work to make sure that I then get to bed earlier. It might be that I need to introduce that routine before bed. It might be that I need to create a better daily schedule so that I can get everything that I need done earlier in the day so that I actually have some chill time before I then got to start winding down for the evening. You can kind of take this wherever you need to take it as long as it makes sense to you. In an ideal world, you would be looking for 2 or 3 things in each section, in an ideal world. If you only get 1, we'll go with 1. But if you can get 2 or 3 in each section, that would be amazing. Hopefully, relatively simply now, you're going to look at that table and you're going to start to think about what your focal points will now be for Q1, all right? So all I want you to do is look into each quadrant and you are going to circle one thing, okay? You're going to circle one thing in each of those quadrants as a focal point for Q1. So what's that one thing you are going to commit to, all right, that you are going to eliminate, the one thing we're going to reduce, the one thing we're going to introduce, one thing we're going to create. Now they might all be kind of intertwined, it might be the same kind of thing, that's all good, it might be different things, also okay. But start to think about what you're going to commit to now for Q1. And if you look at that thing, i.e. create or introduce, and the thing that you've written down, you're like, Q1, that's going to be pretty sticky. I might not get that done in Q1. That's okay. Is there something quite close to it, like a reduced version of it, that you could do by Q1? So it could be, I'm going to plan my entire year so I know exactly what I'm doing. You're like, whoa, I ain't got time for that. That's okay. Could you do the first half of the year? Could you do up to the end of Q1? For example. All right, so start thinking about something that you actually can focus on, something achievable, something that's going to help you moving into the end of Q1, all right, to the end of March, coming into April. So you're circling one thing, and if that thing seems too lofty, too stretchy, then find something that you can commit to. If you committed to those things, whatever they may be, all the way from now to the end of Q1, all right, what would success look like for you at that point? So coming back to draw upon what I mentioned earlier, it could be that I am consistently Monday to Friday in bed by 8:30 p.m. For example. Whoa. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you now, you're laughing. You were laughing.
Some people are rocking in from work.
That is genuinely my goal. And I'm getting better at it. 8:30, all right? When your alarm goes off at 4:30 in the morning, trust me, 8:30 is okay. And Ben, just so you know this, I'm gonna out him. So Ben, religiously, and the coaches will back me up on this, 7:30. 7:30, all right? Ben, in bed, soundo, 7:30 p.m.
Never a Thursday when you do it.
Apart from that. And he hates it. In terms of sleep-wise, yeah. So think about what success would look like for you if you double down on that. Okay, we're moving on. Just to clarify before we move on to the next bit, because clearly it caused outrage, I'm not saying you need to be in bed by 8:30, all right? I feel like we potentially lost sight of where we were going with that then for a minute, all right? So just chill out a minute. You're just thinking about what success would look like for you at the end of Q1, not my bedtime, all right? So just think about that, yeah? And I want you to think about this. The reason we're looking at this, and we're looking at essentially quite small pieces of the puzzle. Small daily improvements are invisible until they're undeniable. We're so, myself included, I mentioned it very briefly earlier, maybe not in these precise words, but we just skip past and we overshadow the small steps, all right? They are and will always be the things that get us to where we want to go, all right? I promise you, all right? I should have learned from my mistakes a long time ago. Clearly I haven't. But I promise you now, small steps in the right direction is the way forward. I'm pretty sure I promise this is the last table. I'm pretty sure. Write this down. Well, clearly I was wrong. It's a lot of tables, Glenn. I can't remember them all. I'll try it. Now the reason actually to that point actually that you mentioned, so the reason I actually want you to bring your training diaries, there is a reason. Beforehand, we've printed off sheets of paper, we've handed them out, got people to fill them in, and I almost guarantee, I'd say 99.9% of people do not have those pieces of paper anymore. All right? If you have your training diary with you at all times, at some point you can look back at this and you can reflect upon it, you can use it, all right? So that is the reason that I've asked for a training diary to be there, something that you keep with you, all right? Now, this table here, you've got 3 columns, you've got barrier, solution, and action. Now, if you've been to previous summits when we've looked at goal setting, we've looked at something we call the GROW model, all right, when we're looking at setting goals. These are elements of that GROW model that help us out. So what I want you to think about now is the things that you circled. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. I'm going to create that habit, I'm going to reduce that thing, I'm going to introduce this thing. What are the barriers to you doing that? Okay? Because there will be things there that you know will crop up. We'll use, maybe unwisely, the bedtime routine again. 8:30 p.m. The barrier could be, well, I don't get in from work till 8. What's my solution? It might be, well, I need to prep food on a daily basis. Well, I only do that food shop once a week. That's not going to work. I come in too late. I can't do that. They are barriers. They are things that are going to stand in the way of me making a positive change or looking to introduce or reduce that. Reduce screen time on the phone. Well, actually, the barrier is that I use it for work. It could be my way that I wind down of an evening. So the things that will get in the way. And these aren't necessarily things that are just going to crop up out of nowhere. We know what they are. Because typically they are the excuses that we use in the first place to go, I can't do that because. So we know they're there, but you've got to highlight what the barrier actually is. Become aware of it. When you have that down, you then need to start thinking, well, my solution could be that. Well, maybe I don't get into bed at 8:30, I'm in at 8, but I could get in at 9. And actually, if I spent less time on my phone, then I would still be asleep at a decent time to get 7 hours, I'm good to go. It might be actually that I get that food shop delivered to my front door, therefore it's cutting down time that I have to go out and purchase it, therefore making life a little bit easier for myself. So think about the barrier that you know is going to be in the way of you doing that thing that we circled earlier. What's the solution? Then when you've written the solution down, you actually need to action it. So it could be going on to Tesco's online to arrange that shop. When are you going to do that? Is it going to be on a repeat thing? I don't know how that works, but think about that. Is it getting the earlier train home? Is it making sure again that actually I'm out the office at a certain time? What's the action that needs to be put in place for me to solve the barrier that I know is going to come up at some point? And again, I'll come back to the fact that for the most part, you know what the barrier is. Therefore, if you highlight it and you think of a plan B, plan C, it can't become an excuse anymore because the excuse is too easy to fall back on. If you know what it is and you prep and you plan for it, then there will be an alternative. Now that alternative might not be perfect. Does it matter? No. If it's moving you in the right direction still, we're good. Getting to bed at 9:30, maybe not perfect for you, but it's better than sitting on your phone or watching Netflix till midnight. All right? So the option, the plan B or plan C, might not be perfect, but if it's better and it allows you to keep moving, as I mentioned earlier, small steps in the right direction, it is worth us doing, it is worthwhile. And the more you do that, the easier maybe the optimal thing could be. Okay, we're moving on. Looking at this, and I appreciate it looks quite weird. Stay with me, all right? When we think about all this stuff, when we think about that 360 that I mentioned earlier, and we really start to think about goals, setting them, achieving them, bringing habits into play, we think about training, consistency, and nutrition. All that stuff is great, all right? If we do not have this thing here that weighs it all out, the whole thing topples. Simple, okay? Any idea what that is?
The bottom one.
What would balance all of that? But if we don't have it, the whole thing comes crashing down. What's the one thing that we need?
Mindset.
Oh, mindset, love it. Yeah? Now look, this is why, whether you detest it or not, this is why we go through this stuff. This is great, all right? But for the most part, all the information around training goals, habits, all that kind of stuff, you could find online or you could chat GPT it in about 4 seconds. You cannot sort that out. Okay, it will not make the rest of that happen. It is that simple, okay? Well, actually, it's not simple at all, but it is that simple, all right? So by all means, information is great. We've got some coming up. But it is not the stuff that's going to ultimately get you where you need to be. It is this. All right? So whether it is this kind of stuff or whatever, that mindset is so, so key. And I want you to think about, you cannot have a new reality. You cannot maybe get to where you want to go with an old mentality. So you cannot have a new reality without an old mentality. You have to change the mindset element of it. You have to change the beliefs, the behaviors, all that stuff. If you do not change that, when you look back at a potential picture from January 2025, if you did this next year, you'd be in the same place. Okay? So I know this stuff is annoying, and we've written down loads of stuff, and it's uncomfortable, and there's tables coming out your ear rolls, but it is the kind of stuff that is worth it. All right? And I think we're getting into a break, And I think I'm leaving you on this, which is actually something I heard flicking through social media the other day, all right? That I've actually thought about quite a lot since I heard it, because it's so true. What you're not changing, you are choosing. Think about that for a second. So the things that you are not changing, training routine, sleeping routine, nutrition, whatever, and nutrition being the biggest one. So the thing you are not changing, you are choosing to not change it. Think about that for a minute again. All right? Now, there will be certain circumstances where maybe that isn't true. All right? There will be whatever. But for the most part, for the vast majority of us, again, self-included, the things that you do not change, ultimately, you are choosing to not change them. You have the ability to make a change. You had the choice to write down things in those boxes a minute ago. And if you didn't, you chose to not write stuff down. Simple, okay? Start thinking about that a little bit deeper, because you are the ones that can change it, okay? Now, we've done a lot of writing, an awful lot of writing. Chill, relax, we're taking a break. Amazing. Okay, right, ladies and gents, hopefully we are somewhat refreshed, ready to go again. All right, now, as I mentioned earlier, this second bit is going to be very information heavy. All right, I am going to go through a little faster. All right, I'm just very aware of time. Obviously, we got started a bit late. So I want you to be all ears, and this is the bit where I'm going to start picking on people. All right, so if you're drifting off, yes, I am coming to you. Okay, all right. So just stay with me. First things first, little recap. All right, what have we just done this morning? So we actually did a whole reflection on 2024. We looked at where we were, plans, what worked, what didn't, and why. We went into setting intentions for 2025, so where we could be if we removed limitations and adopted the right mindset. We outlined a bit of a plan for Q1. We have some focal points there. So phase one, thinking about what we can control right now and what success would look like at the end of Q1. And then we kind of dipped into the grow model ever so slightly when we're setting the goals. We understood reality, highlighted obstacles, and then your options off the back of it. And we have a time frame, which is the end of Q1. All right. Now, the first thing I want you to do is do that for me. So phones back out. You have 13 weeks, 91 days until we are back in this room at the Q2 Summit. It is live. Book it. Book it. Go onto your T2FIT app and book it. And 13 weeks, 91 days. Think about where you could be at that time if you actually did what you wrote down. All right? Now that is a serious bit. Think about that. Where could you actually be in 91 days if you fully committed to what you wrote down? All right? That's only phase one. Yeah? Now, we've got the plan. We have the commitment, hopefully, and if not, then Mel will sort that. Support element. Okay? Everything, and some of you may have seen this before if you've been on the live recordings and stuff on the open office on the lab. And if you haven't, by the way, like I say, this is all, from this point onwards, this is all going to be a resource that is going to be in the lab. Okay, so if you're not on the lab, you should be. Get on the lab, it's all there. You may have seen that if you've watched the videos from the lab before, all right? If you've not been through the content on the lab in the classroom section, there is a whole host of stuff in there that talks about what we've spoken about already, the stuff that we're gonna be talking about. It's there at your disposal the entire time, okay? So if you ever feel stuck, which we'll come on to later, you have information there at your fingertips, okay, for the most part. And like I say, if you really needed to, you can go on ChatGPT and get it in about 4 seconds, all right? Yeah, the information is there. It's how you apply it that's the important part, all right? So this is gonna be around your 2025 survival kit. We're gonna look at nutrition, so the basics for maximal change, training, what really drives your results, lifestyle, a daily checklist for success, and then mindset, your key to whatever it needs to be, okay? Now, nutrition, what to eat. We did this before, in essentially a slightly different format, but I'm gonna, for the most part, tell you exactly what to eat. That simple, all right? Now, when we start thinking about calories, we start thinking about macronutrients, we know protein, carbs, fats. I appreciate alcohol is not a macronutrient, but I have put it on there to highlight it, all right? Now, you were looking at about 4 calories per gram of protein, 4 calories per gram of carbohydrates, fats, 9 calories per gram, alcohol, 7 calories per gram, all right? So when you're going through your tracking, when you're looking at macronutrients, you have all this stuff. And again, if I'm moving quickly, remember, you can come back and you can get all the information, okay? So highlight key things that you need. And when it comes to high protein, all right, 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, or 1.2 to 2.5 grams per kilo of body weight. It should ideally be based around lean meats, fish, eggs, Greek yogurt. Protein powders are okay as long as you find one that works for you. Legumes, yeah, legumes, them things. Tofu, I eat a lot of it. Quinoa, tempeh, that stuff, okay? All decent protein sources, all right? They are all decent protein sources. What ideally you should be basing it around. Carbohydrates, typically around 35 to 45% of your daily calorie intake. Ideally, for the most part, rice, potatoes, you can use wraps, sourdoughs, oats, and then breads and pastas, you can definitely use them sparingly. You can use any carbohydrate you want, one that works well for you. For me, actually, white breads, white rices, white pastas actually work better than the brown stuff, although I do sacrifice a little bit of fiber on that. But again, if you stay within those carbohydrate regions, we'd be pretty good. Yeah. Now, the higher or lower would also depend on your activity level. Yeah. Fats would typically be between 50 and 90 grams per day, or they could make up whatever was left once you've sorted out your protein and carbohydrates. Yeah. Oily fish, again, you get it from meat, nuts, eggs, olive oil, avocado. Yeah. Great fat sources. Fiber, typically 20 to 30 grams per day. Fruits, vegetables, and that word, legumes again, all right, is in there, yeah? So that's it just from a macronutrient standpoint for the most part. Now, can you eat other things? As I mentioned, yes, of course you can. But these are like go-tos, all right? They are go-tos. They've got to be things that work for you, that make sense, but these are go-tos. If we ate pretty much, we'll come on to the 80-20 later on, 80% of the stuff on here, we are doing pretty well, okay? Now I want you to start thinking about those bits, but thinking about it from a fuel standpoint and a functional standpoint as opposed to just a weight loss tool, okay? Because typically that's how we do it. Now, high protein, growth and repair of muscle tissue, maintenance of muscle tissue, enzyme production and hormone regulation. Carbohydrate is your main energy source for brain and body. Helps metabolize fat, okay? It actually helps alongside proteins to help metabolize fat properly, all right? Fats, sustained energy, nutrient absorption, i.e. if we eat the right fats, it helps us to absorb the nutrients from other macronutrients and from our food. Cellular health, cognitive function, organ protection, hormone regulation, okay? Fiber, healthy digestion, controls blood sugar, lowers cholesterol, okay? So there's a number of reasons that we can start to look at this stuff, not just from I need to build muscle and drop body fat, but there is I actually need to start feeling better, performing better, having better clarity at work, being able to sleep better, wake up feeling less groggy. We need to start thinking about those elements there as well. Priorities, 80-20 rule. 80% of your nutrition should be seen as fuel and function, 20% as pleasure, as a rough guideline. Now, actually, to kind of a point, not quite as I had a conversation with Gemma just a second ago, there will be times where that 80-20 gets skewed. I.e., it might be more of a 50-50, it actually might be more of a 100-0, all right? On the good side, I mean, all right, not the bad side, potentially not. It is okay for that to fluctuate, but for the most part, 80-20. If we're eating from that list that we mentioned earlier, all right, fantastic, we're doing pretty damn well. Start with protein. So when you think about a snack or mainly a meal, try and start with your protein source where possible. Build your meals around it. It is typically your hardest macronutrient to eat in adequate amounts, and it's very, very tricky for the most part to grab in convenience, all right? So start thinking about the protein source first. Don't skip macros. So eating a well-rounded nutritional profile will help you from a physical and mental and emotional level, okay? So again, you haven't got to start cutting out stuff. It's about making sure that you have a well-rounded kind of nutritional profile, yeah? Remove empty calories, and this for the most part is going to be the real big kicker where a lot of us will fall short when it comes to body composition goals, other than the protein. Focus on more nutrient-dense options, allowing you to eat more and actually feel satiated, i.e. fuller for longer, all right? You actually start to realize that when you eat the right foods that aren't quite so high in empty calories, yeah, that we can actually eat more. We should feel fuller. You shouldn't be hungry all the time. If anything, sometimes it's like, how do I eat all this food? Yeah? Sugar and alcohol being two of the biggest culprits when it comes to empty calories. When you think about consuming refined sugars, when we enjoy drinking the alcohol, all right, potentially, it is empty calories. We get nothing from it long term, maybe a short term, but not a long term, all right? Stay hydrated, aim for 1.5. 3 is in the very, very top end, I think, for most people, 1.5 to 3 litres per day, depending on activity levels, all right? And you can also bring in time of year into that as well, heat versus cold, sweating, etc. Yeah? Calories. Now, again, I'm not going to get you to write this down. It will be there for you to come back to, all right? Knowing your calories. If someone says maintenance, essentially we're looking to stay the same. Surplus, we're looking to increase and build muscle, potentially. Deficit, looking to drop weight, i.e. lose body fat, okay? You will do that by finding something called your BMR. There is an equation there. I'm not going to read it out. Don't worry about it, all right? You can find your TDEE, which is your total daily energy expenditure, which basically comes into your activity level on a daily basis. Now, I will make this slightly easy for you. No one here is very active or extremely active. All right? No one here is very active or extremely active when it comes to this equation. All right? So you need to think about this from a sedentary to a lightly to a moderate. Even if you think you are higher than that, when you work this out, if you work this out, you're going to be within the top 3. All right? We start getting into like athlete level if we go lower. Okay? Just trust me on it. Okay? Don't fight me on it. Reductions and increases. If you're looking to increase, i.e. go into a surplus, looking to sustain muscle tissue more, or drop body fat, a moderate increase or decrease would be around 10% of your calories. An average drop or increase would be around 15%, and more of an aggressive drop or increase would be around 20%. All right, now that will be tweaked and changed depending on what happens. Do not go too aggressive too quickly. And again, most of this will be sorted out by your coach for you, but if you want to have a look into it, the information is here, okay? Now, tracking, something that I really urge most of you to do if you haven't done so before. When we do so on apps, and again, MyFitnessPal is a great tool, all right? But be aware of the options and the quantities when tracking on apps, as they can be misleading. Something like MyFitnessPal, people can put values and stuff in that you go, oh, that do, and actually the macros are completely off. So just be aware when you are tracking on apps, all right? The truth, log everything to ensure you are getting a true representation of what you are consuming. This includes sauces, condiments, oils, etc. And he's quite right, if you're Ben, spices, all right? So things like that as well, yeah? If you really want to get locked in with this stuff, you need to track everything. Because for the most part, if you just track the ingredients, but we're dumping oils and butters into pans and we aren't tracking it, think back to the fats from earlier, it's 9 calories per gram of a fat that we're cooking in. We're not even then equating for the calories, all right? So be aware of that stuff. Weigh it. Ideally, weigh foods that you are tracking. All right, this will give you the best possible accuracy. And for the most part, you're going to weigh that ingredients raw before you cook it. Is a little bit more accurate that way, okay? Tracking in bulk, weigh all of your ingredients to create a meal. You can do that on the app. You can write it down. You can create a meal once you've kind of logged it all. And then simply divide the calories and macros between the number of portions that you create. So if you're doing like a big old bulk cook on a Sunday, for example, load of stuff goes in, weigh it as a bulk thing. I've got 5 Tupperware boxes. I'm going to divide the macros and the calories by 5. And for the most part, we're going to be relatively accurate, okay? You haven't got to start doing every single one individually. And then tracking one out. So track ahead of time where possible. So if you're out and about, restaurants, social engagements, whatever, if you go into a restaurant and you can have access to a menu, then try and do it ahead of time, all right? Even if it's not perfect, try and do it ahead of time. You can actually use the portion guide of your hand if you need to. That's a rough guideline. Don't take scales out to restaurants, all right? Not unless you're stepping on stage, okay? It's unnecessary. When it comes to the tracking, this is your hand portion guide, all right? If you've never heard this before, it's a very brief overview. Protein, when you look at your plate, roughly you are looking for a palm-sized protein source, okay? Not including fingers, okay? So palm-sized protein source, and depending on the size of your hand, somewhere between 20 and 30 grams of protein in there, all right? Carbohydrates, a cupped hand, roughly 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrates for more starchy stuff. Fiber, 2 cupped hands. Think about fruits, fruit being the side of your fist, sorry. For the fiber, think salads, vegetables, 2 cupped handfuls of that kind of stuff would be great, yeah? And then fats, think about the size of your thumb. So if you had a chicken salad with, I don't know, a bit of fruit on the side of it for a snack or whatever, with some avocado the size of your thumb, then you've got a lunch, for example, all right? If you were out and about and you didn't have to track that, you've got a rough idea about where you are, okay? Be aware of oils, butters, and dressings, okay? They are the things that hike calories up massively. Sauces and condiments, so if you put in mayo, ketchup, mustard, horseradish, I don't know, whatever you want to put on there, yeah? It all counts. It all counts. If you're making up a tuna mayo sandwich or whatever, and the old mayonnaise goes in, trust me, all right? When you start weighing that stuff out, you'd be very, very surprised. It brings back memories of the granola for me, and if you were at previous summits, then you'll know what I'm talking about, all right? Healthy options, read the labels. Not all healthy options are as healthy as they seem, especially when you think about protein bars, the healthy pastas that you get in Marks and Spencer's, that kind of stuff. Alcohol. So think about the alcohol itself. Remember, 7 calories per gram. Think about the mixes that go in there as well, but also the knock-on effect to the additional calories, your metabolism decreasing, mood and recovery and performance all become affected because of it. Now, again, there will be times where, do you know what, that's worth it. Cool, fine, but think about it from a long-standing point of view, yeah? And then portion sizes. So again, weighing your food to understand portion sizes will be a game changer, all right? Don't do it by eye, actually roughly figure out what you're consuming, because again, it's quite mad when you think about what an actual portion size of stuffing is versus what I would normally eat. It was scary, okay? This is your 7-day calorie window. And again, for the most part, where people fall short, I've been great all week, therefore I deserve a treat at the weekend. Whether that come in the form of Krispy Kreme donuts would be my go-to, all right? Whether it be calories from alcohol, whatever. You might be spot on. Let's say your daily calorie target, 2,500 calories per day. We are spot on to the absolute dotting I's, crossing T's, Monday through to Friday. I've been amazing this week. Saturday, Sunday, I'm gonna let my hair down a little bit. Overall now, your 17,500 calorie week's gone through the window. We're now at 20 plus thousand calories. You've gone from a deficit into a surplus because you've been really good all week. So you need to start thinking about your calories over a 7-day window. Yeah, so Saturday and Sundays are not off days. Calorie banking can help that, something that a few of you will understand. Basically means, in a nutshell, from Monday to Friday, I pull back on my calories slightly. Now, not enough where I become overly fatigued, can't recover, can't perform, but I reduce that maybe 2,500 down to a 2.2 or a 2.3, whatever, maybe even a 2,000, worst case. I then bank calories because I know that I have quite a big weekend coming up. I'm going to Dublin for a stag do, for example. I'm not, I wish I was, but I'm not. But I'm going to hold back a little bit on that, okay? So you can bank calories for later use, yeah? So you've got to plan ahead for that. Recapping nutrition. Eat a well-rounded nutritional profile to maximize function and performance. Base your meals around a source of protein and build the additional macros around it. Focus on 80-20, the 80% being the nutrient-dense foods that will fuel mind and body. Remove the empty calorie sources from sugar and alcohol. Know your needs. Understand your daily calorie needs based on your BMR and your TDEE. Track in advance where possible. Look at nutrition from a 7-day window. Use calorie banking so that you can actually still go out and enjoy those occasions of a weekend or whatever it may be. And be aware of the hidden calories that we don't think are actually that important because they really, really are. Okay? So that is your nutrition in a nutshell. Make sense?
Yeah.
Training. The reality of this is, if I put this answer up, 168, 720, 8,760, right? That's the answer. What's the question? Anyone want to take a stab at it?
Hours.
Love that. Amazing. It's like the 1% club. How many hours in a week, in a month, and a year? So what would the question be for that? What within the week? On average, how many hours you spend in the gym training per week, per month, per year? Okay? On average. That's 164 hours a week where you are not in the gym. 704 per month. That number for some of you will be less, by the way. Per month, all right, 704 where you're not. 8,568, again, where you are not in the gym. Yeah? Think about that. When it comes to a training program, all right, it is a minute piece of the puzzle, okay? So that training program didn't work for me, it wasn't the right fit, it didn't push me hard enough. It's not that. You spend so many hours outside of the gym. That is where we're making the change, all right? Your training program, which I think I'll come on to in a second, let me read this, it's probably more succinct. So the success and results that you see in the gym and from your training are either enhanced or reduced by what you were doing outside of it, all right? Your training is simply you creating an opportunity for something to happen and then cultivating the right environment through nutrition, movement, sleep, and recovery will determine the end result, okay? So really start to think when it comes to training, you are literally just creating an opportunity for change. The X amount of hours that you spend outside of there will determine how good that end result actually is, whether it be us increasing muscle, staying more injury-free, seeing that body fat come down, whether it be getting ready for an event, or seeing a change on a body scan, all right? It's the stuff outside of it that really, really, really counts. Now, components, we're looking at strength being one, so your base should be around strength and resistance training, aiming for roughly 3 sessions per week, and ideally allowing for adequate recovery between sessions, yeah? It should be based on a program, periodized program, which we do have here, that allows for linear progression. And what I mean by that is slow, steady progression over the course of a training program or cycle, okay? The program should incorporate a balance of body parts and functions to manage fatigue and recovery. So that is the way that we have the T2FIT method. It is not about absolutely destroying one part. It's about making sure that we actually spread that effort, intent and energy over the course of 3 sessions over a week. Same with the large groups, to making sure that you can come back next week and do the same thing, if not slightly better. It's not about making sure that you leave here every single time completely finished. That's not the plan, it's not the goal. Sometimes, yes, not always, all right? Simple movements performed correctly, regularly, and at the correct intensity is key. Simple. Conditioning. Sessions supplement your strength training. Again, that depends on the goal, but for the most part, it should supplement against your strength. You should be aiming to complete 1 to 2 sessions per week, and ideally, again, allow for adequate recovery between sessions without impacting your strength. The strength should be the thing that sits at the forefront, all right? Again, supplement it with the conditioning. Most of your time should be working in around that zone 2 to 3, so that is still a working pace, but not crazy, for cardiovascular development whilst managing fatigue. And again, you will get times where you spend in that zone 4 and 5 to develop additional energy systems that also help with calorie expenditure. All right, so burning more calories, but also cardiovascular development there as well. Yeah. Recovery is something that gets downplayed a lot, all right? And something that we should be thinking more and more about. Any training plan that you do and the volume that you complete is only as good as your ability to recover from it. All right? So if you cannot recover from what it is that you're doing, whether it be the type of training or the volume across the course of a week, then that program is not right, okay? Or you're not doing it correctly. Aim to include 1 to 2 rest days per week. A rest day does not mean that you are sitting there doing nothing. It means that you are still moving, you are still active. Going out for a walk or something like that would be fantastic, yeah? Use deload weeks within your training phases wisely, i.e. when we get to the start of a new program, thinking about that first couple of weeks as an introductory phase. We've probably come off of a heavy week 6, 7, and 8. The likelihood is your body needs to rest, recover, so it can build again, all right? Sleep should be made a priority alongside hydration and nutrition. And up to 75% of growth hormone is secreted during deep sleep, all right? That is responsible for your muscle protein synthesis, i.e. muscle growth, muscle repair, and promotes fat metabolism, okay? So think about that. You will burn more fat, you will gain more muscle, you will recover better in deep sleep. So if you're constantly stressed, constantly overworked, overtraining, all that kind of stuff, you will not be in deep sleep. Therefore, you could be creating, off the back of all of this hard work in the gym, a place where your body is screaming out. And it's like, well, I can't make the change actually that you want from me right now, because hormonally, stress-wise, I'm done. So we need to create a better environment for that. And often taking our foot off the gas seems really weird to see more change, but it's a really key element. Unsung heroes, NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, i.e. anything that isn't planned exercise. Walking, moving, daily chores. Intensiveness, one of Cass's favorite words, all right? Not intensity, intensiveness. That is being able to apply intensity into a movement and or position with light load, or in some cases not even any load at all. And being able to do that will massively help you moving forward. Consistency kind of speaks for itself, and then rested and fueled. Actually thinking about your sessions ahead of time to come in and make the most of them as best we can, feeling rested and being fueled to make sure that I can make the most of it, okay? I'm not going to go too much into this, but trust in the process of the 8-week phases. We have reps in reserve, tempos and pause is everyone's favorite word, all right? They are all there for a reason. Essentially, it's managing load, it's managing intensity, and it's making sure that you can then come back the following day, the following week, and still see progress, all right? And then why muscle? It increases your RMR, your resting metabolic rate. So your RMR relates the amount of calories that your body will burn at rest, i.e. if you did not get out of bed all day today, the amount of calories that you will just burn laying there, all right? So that is your RMR. that essentially comes down to muscle mass. So someone with more muscle mass will lay in bed and they will burn more calories to help sustain that level of muscle tissue. If you have less muscle, you will burn less calories at rest laying in bed. i.e., if you build more muscle, you will continue to burn calories at a higher rate. All right? It's one of the reasons you want to build it. Okay? Strength and resilience. So building muscle therefore increases strength, helps you carry out a number of tasks, improves independence, also allows our bodies to be stronger and more durable, especially when it comes into later life, helping with muscle, connective tissue, and bone health. All right? So we're not doing it just for the aesthetics. Okay? So your time in the gym is an opportunity to create change. It's what you do outside the gym that actually dictates the outcome of results. The reality is the training is the easy part. Your training program should include strength, conditioning, and recovery. Movement is medicine. Think about NEAT being a real game changer there on rest days. You will do the same 20-ish movements for the rest of your life. Learn to do them well. All right? When you look back at videos of the top bodybuilders, they are for the most part doing the exact same thing that you are. All right? They are not reinventing the wheel. Yes, there are certain mechanical things with cables that are getting a bit fancy nowadays, but for the most part, you will do very similar exercises for the rest of your life. Yeah, because you don't need to do anything fancy. It's just creating change to your body. Get good at them. Intensiveness will get you better results than intensity will in the long run, i.e. your ability to move well versus your ability to move heavy. Play the long game. Create an environment that allows you to turn up the next day and repeat. And again, your RMR can account for up to 70% of your total daily calorie expenditure, 90% of which is correlated to lean muscle tissue, i.e. get lean muscle on you, okay? Now lifestyle, we have this. Anyone seen that before? Not poker, no. Terrible at poker. This is something called 75 hard. All right, anyone heard of 75 hard?
That's a spade.
Good observation. This is something, it's a challenge that came out of the States by a guy called Andy Frisella. And it's something that I did a long time ago, which was super helpful. And it's something that you're going to get an opportunity to create for me right now. So basically, it was around rules. Follow a nutritional program with no cheats. Complete 2 45-minute workouts or some form of exercise, one of which must be outdoors. Drink 1 gallon of water per day. That was around 3 liters, I think. Read 10 pages of a self-development book, and then take a progress picture every day. All right? The 75 bit is I had to do it every single day for 75 days. Okay? Every day. If I missed a day or I didn't complete it, I had to start again, which happened once on day 3. Because I thought it had to be done by midnight, and I was about that much water away, and I realized that I took the dog out too late, and I was like, oh no, I've missed out. So I was 3 days in and I missed by that much water. Everything else was done, but I started again because technically I hadn't done it. Okay, so I did 78 days technically, all right? Now, you haven't got to do this, don't panic. Yeah, but when I say it was one of the best things that I did, not just from a physical standpoint, but from a mindset standpoint, it's crazy. It is probably, at the end of the 75 days or 78 days, it was arguably one of the most confident I've ever felt in my entire life. Because that showing up for yourself every day that I mentioned earlier, that's what I did every day for 75 days, all right? I celebrated a win every day for 75 days. Yeah, we say about celebrating wins all the time. So I achieved something every day. But I had to do that to then get the confidence. Remember, confidence doesn't come before you do something. You have to make it happen. But mindset-wise, it allowed me to be way better, way stronger, let's say more confident. What could be your 5? And think about the time frame. So it hasn't got to be 75 days. Could be 91. Next summit, you're all booked in already. So all right? But what could be your 5 things? And I want you to think about this. Something physical, so it could be a walk, could be 15 minutes of mobility, could be playing with the kids in the garden for 20 minutes, all right? Could be something nutritional based. Yeah, so eat X amount of protein, no sugar, no alcohol, prep all of my insert your meal or meals. Something around mindset, meditate for 10 minutes, write in a journal, reflect on my day, it could be plan the following day. Something that takes you out of your comfort zone. It could be read 10 pages, it could be learn a new skill for 10 minutes per day. It could be no more than 20 minutes of screen time, which again, everyone should do, all right? And then something around planning for the next day. So the one that I had done before was you have to write down 3 critical tasks that you must complete for the following day. Yeah, or just plan your working day a day ahead. They're examples. Write down 5, away you go. Okay, right, ladies and gents, we're going to move on because I appreciate people who've got places to be, all right? So with those daily tasks, and again, if you haven't finished them off right now, that's okay, you can do so at a later date. The same as any goal, those daily tasks should stretch you a little bit, but should be achievable, should align with you and your purpose, your values we mentioned earlier, something that essentially makes you better at the end of it, something simple yet effective, and you choose a time frame that makes sense to you right now, and you can quantify it, i.e. easily track it. All right, now the thing that makes sense to you right now is really important because it's again taking in your reality right now as opposed to doing something that's going to be unachievable, unattainable. As I mentioned, the confident element that I got off the back of it was being able to, not easily, but make it work. All right, we've done that already. We're recapping. I'm not even fussed about it. We've done that already. All right, mindset, we saw this earlier. Okay, I got asked this question earlier, what exactly is a strong mindset? So the ability to be resilient, so it's built through exposure to challenging situations and circumstances, and they haven't got to be extremes of, but just exposing yourself to that kind of stuff. Humble, not hard. It's not about being tough the entire time. It's about being humble. It's about being open to feedback. You're looking to improve. You explore new ways of thinking or doing. Confidence, all right, a trait built through success and self-belief, but again, it's something that always comes after the thing, never before. Okay, remember that. Being content, so not content, but being content, all right? You know your values, you know who you are, you know what you want, and importantly, what you are willing to do to achieve something. And then discipline, not motivation, all right? Doing something regardless of whether or not you feel like doing it or not. One of the things in the 75 hard was one of those workouts had to be outside. Seems really silly, but from a mindset standpoint, I knew that I had to spend minimum every day 45 minutes outside. Come rain, shine, whatever, all right? So you're doing something there regardless of whether or not you feel like it. And the language you use speaks volumes. Yeah, but versus, well, what if I? Yeah, but it's not quite right for me. Versus, yeah, well, I could do this, or what if I did this instead, yeah? I can't do that versus, so what is my step 1? What's the first step on that ladder? We saw it earlier. What's the first step? Doesn't work for me. Versus, well, I'll try this though. So thinking about the solution element. It's not my fault. How many times you heard that? Especially nowadays, not my fault. Or is it that you just didn't try hard enough? Because a lot of the time it's that one. I promise you that. I'm never doing that. Versus maybe one day. We had a number of people who just did ethics. And it's great seeing the social media stuff go up. Never would have done this. But you did. Didn't go straight into ethics. But you trained consistently and you got yourself to a point and you surround yourself with the right people in the right environment where you were able to go and do something you never felt was possible. So thinking about that. You get what you work for, not what you wish for. Again, we all like the idea of certain things, but actually putting the work in is quite tough. It takes years, then it all happens at once. It's about building the foundations. Oh, I'm never getting anywhere, I'm never getting anywhere, I'm never getting anywhere. And then all of a sudden, boom, oh shit, yeah, that worked. But it takes a little bit of time. If one thing we could learn this year is patience, we're all doing pretty well, all right? I'm not even going to recap that, all right? It's all there for you to come back to at some point. Now, this is a bonus section, words of wisdom, which I came across when I was looking at stuff for the summit, which I thought was quite cool, and I wanted to share it. I wasn't quite sure how to share it, but I was going to share it anyway. If you feel like you are failing, reflect on a time where you succeeded. Now, we all get that point at some point in our life where we feel like we're failing, we're not quite worthy of something, things aren't quite going our way. Reflect on a time where you succeeded. If you are overwhelmed with your thoughts, write them down. If you feel stuck in the present, start planning for the future. If you are feeling restless, go for a walk. If you feel like everyone hates you, sleep. If you hate yourself, shower. All right, seems silly, true though. If you hate everyone, eat. Yeah? So true. If you're always hungry, eat protein. And if you're always tired, reduce your sugar content. All right? And again, for the most part, if we did a handful of those things, we're doing pretty well this year. All right? Again, you can always come back to this stuff. It's going to be on the lab. Yeah? Now, your next check-in with your coach. I need you to provide them with a few things. Your goals for 2025. What success would look like for your Q1. And then your 5 daily non-negotiable checklist and the time frame. Ideally also your top 3 summit takeaways, all right? So write that down. Everyone needs to have this with their coach next week. So I'm expecting a few of these to come through, and I will chase you if you do not send it to me, all right? If you ever feel during this journey with T2FIT, if you feel stuck, lost, unsure, in a plateau with your training or nutrition, whatever it may be, you're bored, or you're lost direction or focus, I need you to do these 3 things. Complete the plan, review, and reflect framework that we did earlier. All right? So go back and reuse that framework. All right? You'll have ample time to do it at home. Okay? So if you ever feel any of these things, go back to that framework. All right? Complete that ERIC audit off the back of it. So think about where you are right now, your habits, your behaviors, your beliefs, your current routine. What needs to go? What do you need to eliminate, introduce, create? And then go to your coach, either face-to-face, over the phone, email, with what the problem is. 3 possible solutions that you think might help, and your top solution. So off the back of those 2 frameworks, because we need to start using them more, it seems silly just to do it here, go to your coach off the back of those frameworks with the problem, 3 possible solutions, and what you think your top solution is to overcome it. So if ever you feel any of those things, that is going to be your process. That bit's done. Next bit coming up. All right? Now, on March 8th, we have a menopause and pelvic floor workshop. All right? Funnily enough, I won't be hosting it. Okay? Those 2 will. All right? So Jem and Amy will be here running through that. Amy's going to be running through the menopause stuff, and Jem's going through a practical pelvic floor workshop. All right? That's going to be running, I believe, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, between 12:30 and 1:15 for the menopause bit, and then a 1:15 to 2 for the pelvic floor. You can attend both or one of them. It doesn't matter. You do have option to book on. If you can't do it now because your app's playing up, that's okay. If you want to come and see one of us at the desk before you go to book you onto it, please let us know. Okay? Coming soon. Oh, where's my picture gone? Picture's gone. Terrible. So close. There was meant to be a thing hidden behind a corner. Anyway, it is what it is. Coming soon. Sometime in March, all right, early March, we're going to be having something called Kahunas. All right? I know Ben actually looked it up. I won't go into the meaning of it, but Kahunas, all right, is an app. All right, some of you will love it, some of you will hate it. We're going to go through a testing phase in the next week or so with some of you to test this out. So it's an app called Kahunas. It is going to be a place where you can track essentially all of your workouts, okay? So when a new program drops, it'll drop straight into the app. You can track everything through the app, all right? You can start to use that. If you don't want to use your phone, by the way, in sessions you haven't got to, you can always transfer it later. You haven't got to use it at all. We'd love people to do it. Like I say, we're going to troubleshoot it first to make sure that it's all good. But it looks like a fantastic bit of kit. It will truly level up the way that we do check-ins, because you can actually start to get all of the information to your coach. Your coach has access to it. You can see it live as the numbers come in. You can you can connect is the word I'm looking for. Watches, all right, so that all of your step count and stuff goes directly into the app. You haven't got to input it, potentially even calories and macros in there, I'm not quite sure, but there's a whole nutritional thing that we can drop in there for you. It will be a one-stop shop for results, essentially. All right, so working with your coach will be new and improved as we come into March and looking forward into the rest of 2025. All right, so we will have more information on that and we'll release that at some point. All right?
Is it free?
Yeah. Absolutely free. Absolutely free. All right. Any questions, please, as always, we're going to be hanging around. Let us know. All right. Other than that, thank you very much for the turnout. Much appreciated. And we all look forward. Thank you.